My name is Jimmy Jameson. I am Director of Strategy and Operations, Headstart Health. Headstart Health is a company that is in the ABA market, which is autism therapy. We're primarily designed around empowering providers to start their own practices and kind of be their own bosses and run their own companies. I've been here for about 3 months. My role here has really been to try and get a lot more efficient and just kind of streamline our processes as a whole. One of my first initiatives was honestly, it was just getting Salesforce stood up. Everything we were doing beforehand was happening on Google Sheets or kind of on Excel files that are happening offline. And so we've been really trying to streamline everything as a result of that. And yeah, I think that's actually basically where I stumbled upon Coefficient and where that use case came in for us was that we handle a lot of billing and patient data. I'm talking probably like 9 or 10,000 rows worth of data that are just they're housed on a third-party partner of ours. And a lot of that information that was housed there is very critical to Salesforce. And we have a bunch of stages and automations and data that people need to do their day-to-day jobs. Historically, it's kind of just required each individual person to go onto our third-party website and look at that data and just like see if that event or that trigger or that patient appointment actually occurred, and then they would go on and move forward with that. But obviously that's pretty cumbersome and has a lot of room for human error. And so, the way our company operates is we're trying to get children with autism their treatment and get them signed up with the new provider and then finally get over to their first aid treatment. There's a number of checkpoints on that process. Let's call it 10. And it can often take probably on average 70 to 80 days for a person to sign up to actually get their first aid treatment. And a lot of the reason for delay there is that we need inputs of information to know when to do the next step. And with that manual process I was describing before, everything is slowed down a little bit, right? You're only as fast as like kind of the slowest person on the team. What I ended up doing was I took all of the data that everyone was looking for, and I just have set up an ability for me to just input that data onto a Google Sheet and have that in real time upload all the information to Salesforce. That changes multiple different statuses within Salesforce based on timestamps and things of that nature coming in. So I've basically removed the job of someone to have to go through and parse through this data and move people around completely. I've essentially automated that. Our updates are much faster and crisper. And in general, I've taken out a lot of like the busy work for people of putting in data, putting in these inputs and just let them kind of focus more on their important day-to-days and focusing on the client families or things of that nature rather than having to worry about that kind of data management. I've probably removed, let's call it 5 hours of work from like 3 or 4 different individuals on the team just by them not having to parse through this data all the time. So already it's a huge win. But the other thing that we're seeing, right, and all this data was being entered in manually, and when you do manual entries X amount of times, they're just human error is going to come into play. And so like the data integrity has gone up. And so I can't quantify it, but we are not having to clean up data as much as we used to, right? And that in itself is like kind of finding a needle in a haystack. So I felt a lot more secure about that. And the other thing that we've been able to do and build off this, and it's kind of where we're going to go as a company, but like now that the updates happen every morning at 9 a.m. and we know that when they happen, everyone knows what they need to do that day. We can send off automations or emails that people need to do. We're updating Slack and have kind of built this whole ecosystem around these updates. So it's really kind of paved the way for us to move forward in terms of kind of where we want to be efficiently as a company. So basically our goal as a company is, and that's 70 days is about the industry standard. Our goal as a company where we're pushing towards to get it to 40 days and kind of shave off 30 days from there. I'd say it's very specific to the data that we're putting in, but we're tracking when an appointment has been even scheduled and put on the calendar for the first time, when it's been completed, when it's been canceled, how many hours or how many dollars was it billed for. All that information is actually coming through Coefficient via that upload we're doing. That means we're tracking utilization of the appointments in a week and how many are actually being conducted. So our end goal, right, is by basically using this data, moving things forward, we can be a lot more exact on when events are happening. We can see when things are slipping and falling kind of like out of our expectations and then kind of take action on it. On the other end, I would say on the provider perspective, it helps us coach them because they're kind of first-time business owners. It helps us coach them on, hey, you're kind of lagging behind on the amount of that you're billing or how often you're conducting appointments. And we have this data coming in real time. We're able to build these reports in Salesforce because this data lives in there now. So a lot more visibility. And again, I think those are actions that my company, like team members, can do. And that's what they're supposed to be doing, is reaching out and doing that. But now we have the data to kind of back that up, and they don't have to worry about going out and finding these different pieces of data. It's just kind of put together for them.